plane landed perfectly, wheels kissing the runway with barely a sound. But when the seatbelt sign stayed on and armed guards appeared in the aisles, Sarah Chen knew something was terribly, horribly wrong. What started as a routine flight home would become a nightmare that exposed a decades-old conspiracy hidden at 30,000 feet. And by the time she discovered the truth, it would already be too late to save everyone on board. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please, like and subscribe for more videos like this. Sarah settled into seat 1 for C of Flight 227, her laptop bag tucked under the seat in front of her. The flight from Boston to Seattle was supposed to take 5 hours. She had presentations to review, emails to answer, and a promotion waiting if she could just nail the meeting on Monday morning. The plane was half empty, which meant she could spread out, work in peace, and maybe even sleep. The takeoff was smooth. Sarah ordered coffee, declined the snack box, and opened her laptop. 2 hours passed, then 3. She glanced out the window. They should be over the Midwest by now, but the landscape below looked wrong. Too green. Too many lakes. She checked her watch. They had been in the air for nearly 4 hours, but the flight tracker on the screen ahead showed they were still 2 hours from Seattle. That is when she noticed the other passengers starting to shift in their seats. A businessman across the aisle kept checking his phone, frowning at the screen. A mother 2 rows up was trying to calm her restless child. The flight attendants moved through the cabin with tight smiles that did not reach their eyes. Something felt off, but Sarah could not quite place what it was. Then the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. There has been a slight change in our flight path due to weather conditions. We will be landing shortly at an alternate airport for refueling. We apologize for any inconvenience. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Sarah frowned. Weather conditions? She looked out the window again. Clear blue sky stretched in every direction. Not a cloud in sight. She pulled up a weather app on her phone, but there was no signal. That was normal at altitude, but something about the captain's tone bothered her. It was too calm, too rehearsed. Like he was reading from a script he had memorized under duress. 20 minutes later, the plane began its descent. Sarah pressed her face to the window, trying to see where they were landing. The airport below was small, almost abandoned looking. Just 2 runways and a handful of buildings. No terminal. No other planes. No signs indicating which city they were even near. The wheels touched down with a gentle thump, and the plane rolled to a stop on the far end of the runway, away from any structures, and then nothing happened. The engines powered down. The plane sat still. But the seatbelt sign remained illuminated. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Passengers began to murmur, reaching for their phones, unbuckling their seatbelts despite the warning light. That is when the flight attendants stood up in unison, blocking the aisles. Please remain seated, one of them announced, her voice sharp now, all pretense of friendliness gone. Do not attempt to leave your seats. Do not use your mobile devices. Remain calm and await further instructions. Sarah's heart began to pound. This was not normal. This was not protocol. She glanced around the cabin. Other passengers were starting to panic now. A man near the front stood up, demanding answers. The flight attendant nearest him stepped forward, and for the first time, Sarah noticed the small radio clipped to her belt and the way her hand hovered near it, ready to call for backup. The cabin door opened with a hiss, but instead of ground crew or gate agents, for people in dark suits entered the plane. They wore no badges, no identification, nothing to indicate who they were or what authority they represented. Behind them, Sarah could see armed security guards taking positions at the base of the stairs. "Ladies and gentlemen," one of the suited figures announced, his voice cold and mechanical. "This aircraft has been detained under federal aviation safety protocols. You will remain in your seats until we have completed our inspection. Anyone who attempts to leave will be removed and detained." There was no apology in his tone, no explanation, no reassurance. Just a flat statement of control. Sarah felt her throat tighten. Detained. What did that even mean? They had done nothing wrong. This was a commercial flight, full of ordinary people going about their ordinary lives. She looked at the faces around her. Confusion, fear, anger. A teenage girl 2 rows back was crying silently, her mother holding her hand. The businessman across the aisle had gone pale, his phone clutched uselessly in his hand with no signal to call for help. The suited figures moved through the cabin slowly, stopping at random seats. They would lean down, ask quiet questions that Sarah could not hear, and occasionally pull someone from their seat and escort them toward the front of the plane. An older man, a young woman in a hijab, a college student with a backpack. There was no pattern Sarah could discern, no obvious reason for the selections. Each time someone was taken. The remaining passengers grew more frightened when they reached row 14. One of the figures stopped beside Sarah. He looked down at her with flat, emotionless eyes. "Name," he demanded. "Sarah Chen," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Purpose of travel." "Business meeting." "Where do you work?" She told him. He made a note on a tablet, studied her face for a long moment, then moved on. 2 hours passed. The plane sat on the tarmac, surrounded by vehicles Sarah had never seen at any normal airport. Black SUVs with tinted windows, vans with no markings. The people who had been removed from the plane had not returned. No one offered water, food, or bathroom breaks. The cabin grew hot, stuffy, the air recycling system apparently shut down. Children whimpered. Adults demanded answers that never came. Sarah noticed something then. She had been so focused on the people being removed that she had not paid attention to which seats they came from. But now, with time to observe, she realized something chilling. Every single person taken had been sitting in an odd-numbered row. 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, and they were all traveling alone, with no companions to protest their removal or verify their identities. She looked at her own seat number. 1 for C, even number. She had not been selected, but that offered no comfort, because now she understood what was happening, even if she did not understand why. This was not random. This was deliberate, planned, orchestrated. Someone had known exactly who was on this flight and where they would be sitting. Sarah's mind raced. She thought about the booking process, how she had selected her seat online 2 weeks ago. She thought about the half-empty plane, how unusual that was for a cross-country route. She thought about the weather excuse, the remote landing, the lack of any real airport infrastructure. This location had been chosen because no one would see what happened here. No witnesses, no cameras, no paper trail. The suited figures returned to the front of the cabin. They conferred in whispers, glancing back at the remaining passengers. Then one of them picked up the intercom phone. "Due to mechanical issues discovered during our inspection, this aircraft is no longer cleared for flight." You will be transferred to ground transportation and taken to Seattle by bus. Your luggage will be delivered separately. Please proceed to the front of the aircraft in an orderly fashion. Do not stop to retrieve personal items from the overhead bins. The passengers hesitated. After 2 hours of being told to stay seated, they were now being ordered off the plane with no belongings, no explanation, no accountability. But what choice did they have? The armed guards outside made it clear that compliance was not optional. Slowly, people began to stand, filing toward the exit with the exhausted resignation of prisoners. Sarah joined the line, her mind still working through the puzzle pieces. Mechanical issues, they claimed, but the plane had landed perfectly. Remote location, but no mechanics in sight. Detained passengers, but no charges, no legal process, no rights being read. This was not about safety. This was about something else entirely. Something someone desperately wanted to keep hidden. As she stepped off the plane, the harsh sunlight made her squint. She looked around, trying to orient herself. Trees in the distance, mountains on the horizon, but no signs, no landmarks, nothing to indicate where in the country they actually were. The buses waiting below were white, generic, with blackout windows that prevented anyone from seeing in or out. They were herded onto the buses quickly, efficiently, like livestock being moved from one pen to another. Sarah found herself sitting next to a woman who had not stopped shaking since they landed. "Where do you think we are?" the woman whispered. Sarah shook her head. "I do not know, but this is not about mechanical problems." The woman's eyes widened. "Then what is it about?" Sarah wished she had an answer. The buses pulled away from the plane, driving not toward any visible airport buildings, but deeper into the wooded area surrounding the runways. Sarah's pulse quickened. This was wrong. This was so deeply, fundamentally wrong. She pulled out her phone again, praying for a signal. Nothing. The woman beside her was trying the same thing, with the same result. It was as if they had driven into a dead zone where communications simply did not exist. After 30 minutes of driving through increasingly remote terrain, the buses finally stopped. But they had not arrived at any airport or transit center. Instead, they were parked in front of a large, nondescript warehouse facility surrounded by high fences and more armed guards. The passengers were ordered off the buses and directed into the building, through a single entrance with metal detectors and screening stations. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into a makeshift processing center. Tables lined one wall, each staffed by officials in suits identical to those on the plane. Passengers were directed to form lines, to present identification, to answer questions about their travel plans, their employment, their families. Their entire lives laid bare under fluorescent lights that hummed like angry insects. When Sarah reached the front of her line, the official barely looked at her. "Passport," he demanded. She handed it over, watching as he scanned it through a machine that beeped twice. He typed something into his computer, frowned, typed more. Then he looked up at her with eyes that revealed nothing. "You have been cleared for release," he said. "Your luggage will arrive at your registered address within 72 hours. You are free to go." Sarah blinked. Free to go, just like that. After everything that had happened, they were just going to let her walk out. She wanted to ask about the other passengers, the ones taken off the plane, but something in the official's expression warned her not to. She took her passport and moved toward the exit he indicated outside. A small parking lot held a handful of rental cars and a taxi service station. Other released passengers were milling about, shell-shocked and confused. Some were already calling family members, their phones apparently working again now that they were outside the facility. Sarah approached one of them. "Where are we?" she asked. The man looked at his phone screen. "According to GPS, we are about 40 miles outside of Great Falls, Montana." Sarah's blood ran cold. Montana, they were supposed to be landing in Seattle. They had been diverted over 1,000 miles from their destination. She found a taxi and gave the driver instructions to take her to the nearest airport with commercial flights. During the 2-hour drive, Sarah finally had time to process what had happened. A plane full of innocent people had been diverted, detained, interrogated, and processed through what amounted to a secret facility in the middle of nowhere. Some passengers had been separated and had not been seen again. No one had been given explanations. No one had been allowed to contact anyone. And it had all been done under the guise of aviation safety. When she finally made it back to Seattle 2 days later, having booked a last-minute flight from Great Falls and spent a night in a cheap hotel, Sarah began researching. She searched for news about Flight 227, about emergency landings in Montana, about passenger detentions. Nothing, not a single news story, not a single report, not even a mention on aviation safety websites. It was as if their flight had never been diverted at all. She contacted other passengers, finding their information through the airline's website and social media. Most were too frightened to talk. A few shared stories identical to hers. But when she asked about the passengers who had been removed from the plane, everyone went silent. No one knew what had happened to them. No one knew why they had been selected. And most disturbing of all, when Sarah tried to verify their identities through flight manifests and passenger lists, those names did not appear. It was as if they had never been on the plane at all. Sarah spent weeks investigating, following leads that went nowhere, contacting authorities who denied any knowledge of detentions or secret facilities. She filed freedom of information requests that were denied. She reached out to aviation lawyers who told her that without proof, without evidence, without other witnesses willing to come forward, there was nothing she could do. The system was designed to protect itself, and whatever had happened on that runway in Montana was buried so deep that no amount of digging would uncover it. But Sarah could not let it go, because she knew what she had seen. She knew those people had been real, and she knew that somewhere, in some classified database or secret report, there were answers about why a commercial flight had been turned into a tool for something far darker than anyone wanted to. Acknowledge. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.